In this video, I will go over how you find the inverse when given a function. So if, say you were given the function f of x equals 3x minus 5, and you needed to find the inverse to that. The first thing we're going to do is rewrite that f of x as just simply y, and write the rest of the function the same way, 3x minus 5. The second step is we're going to replace the x's and y's, meaning we're going to switch their positions. So you're just going to rewrite this function, and instead of being y equals 3x minus 5, you're going to end up with x equals 3y minus 5. Now, the last step is we need to solve for y, get that y alone. The way we do that is just algebraic equations, moving things around. I'll add 5 to both sides, so I'm going to get an x plus 5 on the left equal to 3y, and the last step would be divide by 3, so you get y equals x plus 5 over 3, or you could also write it simply as x over 3 plus 5 over 3, and that is the inverse to your function. Let's take a look at another example. We've got f of x equals the square root of x plus 7. Again, we're going to start by finding the inverse by writing f of x as y, write the others the exact same, square root of x plus 7. The next step is we switch where the x's and y's are, so it's going to be x equals square root of y plus 7. And of course, now we need to get y alone. So how do we get that y out from underneath that square root sign? Well, we square both sides of the equation. So I'm going to say x squared on the left side, and I'm going to square the whole right side of the equation. So I'm putting parentheses around the square root of y plus 7. I'm going to square that, and when you square where there was a square root, they cancel each other out. So you're just left with y plus 7. You don't need parentheses on the right side, and that's still equal to x squared. Now it's time to solve for y, so I'll just subtract 7 from both sides of the equation. X squared minus 7 is equal to y. That's the inverse. Where we had f of x before, now we found the inverse to that function. Here we have a function f of x equals parentheses 2x minus 3 squared. So we're going to start the same way to find the inverse. Rewrite the f of x as y, so we'll have y equals the same 2x minus 3 squared in parentheses. Switching the x's and y's, you're going to end up with x equals 2y minus 3 squared. Now solving for y, notice this time we have the whole right side is squared. So we're going to undo that by square rooting both sides. So I'm going to do square root of the x, and I'm going to do square root on the other side. That square root will cancel the square. Okay, but it's very important to remember when you take the square root of that of the x, you need to put plus or minus to account for the positive answer and the negative, because there can be two answers there. You still have to do that when you're dealing with these. On the right side, the square root cancels with the square root cancels the square, so we're left with plus or minus x is equal to just simply 2y minus 3, and we don't need the parentheses. Let's get that y alone by adding 3 to both sides. We've got 3 plus square or minus square root of x, and that's going to equal 2y. Divide both sides by 2, so we have 3 plus or minus square root of x over 2. Now notice the original function we just called f of x. For notation-wise, when we find the inverse, we write it as f to the negative 1 x. So f to the negative 1 x equals 3 plus or minus x. Here's a final example of something you might run into. We can use g of x, f of x doesn't matter. So let's say we have g of x is equal to x minus 1 over 6. And I want to find the inverse of g of x. Still write the g of x as y equals, we got x minus 1 over 6. When you switch them, you get x equals y minus 1 over 6. So how do we undo that? You're going to multiply both sides of the equation by 6. When you do that, you can cancel out the denominator. Now we're going to multiply the left side also by 6, so that's just 6x. That's equal to, now the 6 on the right side canceled the denominator. You're simply left with y minus 1 on the right side. Then you just have to add 1 to both sides, and you get 6x plus 1. Notation-wise, we're going to go g to the negative 1 is equal to 6x plus 1, and that is the inverse. Now I want to show you when you're asked to verify if